Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training. And as the name says, that's what we do on here in this community is we train ourselves to become masters of the 3 pound brain between our ears because we did not get an instruction manual to this thing and we are learning on the job. But if we are not instructing it what to do and how to guide us, it will be nudged, pushed off course, and one day you wake up and where am I? Who am I? How did I even get here? And we don't want that. What we want to do is take control of the wheels and guide ourselves to exactly where we want to be and put the odds in our favor. All right, so as the name says, we're training our mind, training our brain. As an athlete and a business person, I realize that my success is dependent on me having control over me. The enemy is one factor, but the biggest factor is myself because I've always trained, I've always put in the work, and somehow somebody else showed up. And that's what I don't want in my life. Sports is okay. That's a moment in time, but this is my life and I want to get control of it. So 2 episodes. One is a strategy session, which we're doing today, and the other is a masterclass where we speak to high-level guests. And we know that success leaves clues, so we pick their brains and get the nuggets from them, and we share it. And I would love it that you have a journal ready to pick apart ideas. You can agree, disagree. I just want you to think about your life for just a short moment of time and guide it. So we want to get through our lives. We don't want to get through our lives. We want to get from our lives. All right, let's dive into the conversation today. The conversation today is what's your story? I'm reading this book called The Power of Story, and it's by Jim Loehr. And it's an old book, but the concept, the idea is powerful. And I'm incorporating it I'm expanding on my coaching where I work with identities and alter egos with my clients, my athletes, and my business people, because how you show up is everything. So here's the deal. And I was also inspired by Shakespeare's quote from his poem, The 7 Ages of Man. And in that poem where he starts, he says, all the world's a stage, and all men and women merely players. They all have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. So just that piece, that first piece, when I think about life, I think about we're all playing a story. We're all playing a part. Just think about yourself in any of your roles as a father, a mother, and a sister, you name it, professional, an athlete. We play roles. We have narratives that guide our behavior and tell us how to show up. And sometimes that narrative has been put in by others. Imposter syndrome, let's say. A lot of people suffer from that. That's a narrative you're telling yourself about what you're worth. Is it true? No. And I find that in life, in NLP, they tell us that what we do is with our experience, any experience, what we do is we delete, we distort, and we generalize. Because here's the thing, there's a lot of information coming into our nervous system. Billion bits of information are being processed every minute as we go through our lives. And what that means, when I break that down, that sounds a little far-fetched. 1 billion bits every minute. Well, when you think about it, the food you ate being broken into micronutrients, the temperature being monitored by your nervous system. So when it gets too cold, you shiver. When it gets too hot, you sweat. The pupils being dilated or constricted based on the input coming in. The entire world, this is something I tell my clients. The entire world is all information. And our bodies have to know what to do with that information. There's an input and there has to be a feedback, a reaction to that input. And that's what the nervous system does. So you can see why it says 1 billion bits of information is being processed, because it's all being broken down and a decision must be made or stored away, because the conscious mind can only store so much information at one time. So the rest gets stored down and brought back for memory or for information later on as you need it. The rest is hidden away in the subconscious. we don't even realize some things have happened until someone brings it back up and it's being stored. So we are processing a ton of information. So what we tend to do, because there's so much, is we delete what we don't need. We can't focus on everything. We distort it based on our background and our life experiences and where we came from, culture, everything. We distort. And then we generalize to summarize the whole thing. We generalize. But in generalizing, we get to the point when we're always doing something, when we're every day, all the time. We generalize the whole world. And that generalization leads to a lot of stress, I find. So, your story. Now, when you think about somebody and they're telling you their story, a large percentage of it, have you ever realized that 5 people, 6, 10 people back in the day who were born in a certain family, all 10 will give you a different rendition of how they grew up. And you're wondering, are you from the same family? 2 kids grew up in a family, and each, depending on their position, or 3 kids, depending on their position in that family, middle child, first, last, they'll have a completely different rendition of how they grew up. And the parents or parent, they didn't raise them intentionally any different, but it just happens that way. Then there's the story of a friend of mine who, and many clients I've had, who have a story. Someone said something to them of influence, and they bought that story that they're no good at this, or this is how I learned, this is who I am. Those are all stories, narratives that can guide your life. Your success or failure is based on your story. And so you have to start to wonder, did I leave anything out? Am I telling the story right about myself? Am I truly no good at math? Go back in my life. When you look at my early lives in high school, I got out of high school with a 50. My goal in high school was never to go to summer school. That was my goal. And I did just that. I made that goal, and then I didn't go to summer school. However, my marks, I had a 56 average getting out of high school. I thought school was not for me. I saw no one in my circle, my family, my life go beyond high school. So for me, that was not even in the equation. Now I graduated, I got 2 degrees, and here I am. That was a narrative I told myself. So what is your story? And so this book, and which is going to be a staple in my coaching, is having you rewrite your own story. You become the director, the producer of this movie we call life, your life. And what if you did start to rewrite your story, start to buy into a new reality? I am a champion. I am a champion. I'm smart. I'm beautiful. I'm successful. I'm abundant. What if you start creating stories like that and start looking at each area of your life, your relationship? Is it truly there's no good men, women, a partner around? Is that true? There's no good ones left, apparently. I don't deserve this or that. What if you wrote down the ending? Begin with the end in mind. What if you wrote down your entire script? What you think you deserve, the narrative you have, what you write it the way you want it, and start to imprint that on your brain. That can bring up as I'm talking about it right now, I feel it can bring up a whole lot. It can open up a Pandora's box on why you aren't deserving that. Why am I not? When I write it down that I'm a millionaire, a billionaire, whatever the number is you have, does that start to bring up feelings of deservedness? Do I deserve this? Am I able to do this? And then you start to dive into, why don't I deserve this? Why don't this come to me? Why is this not part of my life? Why don't I deserve to have this? This can really open up, as I said, go behind the doors of why you think you're not deserved of happiness, love. Woo, this can be really powerful, this rewriting your story. So, the power of your story. What is your story? What part of your life are you currently lacking? And you could do better, but you just know there's a narrative and it comes up. I'll tell you my narrative when it came to money. I had a narrative that I had a ceiling that I didn't know I had. until I noticed I started to self-sabotage at a certain level. And that narrative came to affect me. So I had to rewrite my story. I had to change that embedded. It was embedded. I didn't even know what was happening because I was getting to good enough. But anything beyond this number, I noticed I would do some silly decision, some stupid decision that would cause me to lose money, and I would blame it on the outside. But I didn't realize it was my story that was actually at work. So, what is your story? Get out the journal. Any area that you're struggling right now, sports, life, relationship, business, health. What's your story? Write it out. Dive in. It's gonna be painful and powerful at the same time because change isn't easy for a lot of people. It's cathartic. It will break you down, but then something needs to die for something else to be born. So let's get to work on that. What's your story? Rewrite it because you deserve more. All right. All right. So that's your mastery session for today. That's your strategy session. I think it's a powerful one. So I want you to go to work and do that and send me some feedback. Let me know how you're doing. My connections are in the show notes and you know how to get a hold of me. I'd love to hear your story. All right. Until next time, you know why I do this. Because I want you to be relentless about your pursuit for personal mastery over yourself. Because when you do that, there's no enemy outside. All right. Until next time, like, subscribe, share. Peace and love.